Everybody, welcome to Not A Cigar Show. Okay, maybe a little bit. I'm Fred Rewey from Cigar Press Magazine. You can go to cigarpress.com. See, I worked on my own plug. I'm getting better at this. This is episode number 2. It's not. If you've been playing the game, the episodes are not numbered in any particular order, but the number of the episode does have something to do with the guest on the show. I'm not going to put them on the spot, but if you figure it out, send me an email. You're not going to win anything. You'll probably get bragging rights. And let's be honest, that is the best prize whatsoever. Anyway, let's get on with the show. My guest is a former executive of Manhattan's iconic Nat Sherman townhouse, a jazz drummer, and most currently, and probably most importantly to everybody listening today, co-founder of Ferio Tego cigars. Whether he's creating a new cigar blend, educating our palates in a seminar, hosting a charity auction, or jamming with a band, he brings the same passion, precision, and sense of style to everything he does. Hate everything about him because he is the full package. Please welcome Michael Herklots.
All true. That's
There we go. All true. All true. There you go. My job is done. I don't even need to be here anymore.
Isn't that a song? I hate everything about you.
It should be. It should be. I say that about you all the time. You are just like, you look good. You speak well. You know cigars. It's just like, if I could come back in another life, that's it. So, pick a number between 1 and 5. The guest always gets to decide when I'm smoking.
You 1 and 5?
Pick a number between 1 and 5.
1.
1. Okay. Oh, good news, bad news. My last one, but it is the time list that you actually did for TSG.
Oh, nice.
TGS, excuse me. TGS 2023. Looking forward to this one. So, hey, let's start at the beginning. Let's get the childhood trauma stuff out of the gate for anybody that doesn't know your background. You came from a small town, right? I mean, didn't you like Connecticut or something?
Very small. Yeah, not Martha Stewart, Connecticut. I came from the opposite quarter in Connecticut. Cows, corn, unemployment. That's
Unemployment.
That's where I came from. Yeah, very small town. There are more people in a building in Manhattan than there are in the town I grew up in.
Is this literally like a one stoplight town? Or no stoplight town?
We might have 3. I'm trying to.
One of 3. Okay. One for the fire station and, yeah, okay.
I think there's 3.
Okay. Do you miss small town? Because I mean, let's be honest, we're going to get into the Manhattan phase of your life at some point here, but do you miss like the small town living?
When I was maybe 13, I knew that cities were for me,
Okay.
like for sure. And we went on a road trip when I was 16, and we drove from Connecticut to Montana and back. And I craved for any building taller than 3 stories. If I saw one, it was like, oh my God, finally, this is urban. When I finally left to go to Boston, it was a big step, but I was absolutely ready. Lived in New York, loved it. But now that I've moved back to suburbs, I appreciate the moment in my life now for a house and a yard and a driveway. And, so I don't miss small town, but I guess I'm just a nostalgic guy. And so there is something so special about going home and just, not worrying about the distractions of what city life brings. There's something simple,
Right.
and it's not that I miss it, but I do appreciate it.
So you went from that, correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong by memory here. You went to Berklee College of Music, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what made you choose music? What in a small town? I can't imagine that there's like a whole lot of, influence there. So what did an influence have for you to want to go into music? Because that's a serious college for music.
Well, unfortunately, I was blessed with supportive parents, and
Always a downside.
they believed in that whole, like, do what you want to do, be what you want to be, follow your dreams
But they
line.
weren't musicians though, right? Neither of them was a musician, or were they?
Both were artistic. Both are artistic.
Okay.
So my dad plays music, sing,
Okay.
plays
Okay.
guitar, was drummer. My mom is an artist, was an art teacher. So they are certainly creative and artistic. And I have a twin sister, and my sister and I were both like super into theater and singing and performing and
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. Um, but drumming really was the thing. And
Right.
it was just my favorite thing to do. So why wouldn't I go get a degree and
Right. Right.
convince myself that I can make a living doing it?
So what made you pick drums, and what made you, because you have an affinity with jazz, and that just does not seem to be a normal small town upbringing, a kid jumping into jazz.
So my dad played drums, my uncle played drums, my grandfather played drums.
Oh, there we go. That explains the drums right out of the
And
gate.
drums, like, but not that they pushed me into it. I just really wanted to.
Right. Right.
The jazz thing is interesting. So I started playing in fifth grade, and there was a jazz band as part of middle school that I auditioned for and got it. So I guess, um, besides like concert, jazz was really the first style of music I learned to play. Uh,
Hmm.
and, and so that kind of stayed front of mind. And then from a discipline standpoint, I mean, rock is great, pop is great, and I would play along to music that was more rock and pop. But I think from a discipline standpoint, the jazz thing, it was just so much deeper. There was so much more to learn. There was more, what felt like more ability to grow and
Hmm.
become better. So it was just what I listened to. Big bands, I guess from the beginning, big band, and then smaller band, as I grew. And then by the time I got to college, more like trio quartet work was my main addition to big band stuff. But yeah,
And I want to jump.
none of that makes sense from a small town.
Right. 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 I mean, and I don't want to jump too far into it on the cigar part, because we're going to get to the cigars. But you've always made analogies between jazz and cigars. Like, I've heard you in various seminars, you're talking about the nuances and things like that. That's deeply rooted in your blending, or how you look at the cigar industry.
I just think, um, I think the line that I have used is jazz is to the music industry what cigars are to the tobacco industry. They are um, probably the smallest contributor, the most misunderstood, um, the lowest revenue, but also for those who appreciate it,
Right.
it's just it's so meaningful, and the artists that are in the category, whether it's jazz or cigars, these are people who are humble, who are approachable, who are
Hmm.
grateful to be able to do the work, who love their audience and want to connect with them. There's just so many similarities, and there's so many jazz guys that love cigars.
Right. I mean, what limited amount of jazz iconish people I've met, and certainly I think all of the cigar ones, at least alive during my lifetime, um, it's that guy in the corner that nobody notices. It is the rock star, for lack of a better term, because we're talking music, but it is the guy that, it's the master blender that nobody knows. It's the jazz musician that he's not seeking that spotlight. He's in it for the art. He's in it for the
Yeah.
passion of what he does.
Doing the work is what motivates you as an artist.
Hmm.
I mean,
Right.
the idea of a commercial artist is foreign to most artists.
Right.
You're doing the work, you're in a studio, maybe people see it. Um, on the music side, obviously you're creating albums, you're going out and touring, you're doing that work to try and get people to love your music.
Right.
But you're not trying to convince them to love your music. You're just creating and sharing, creating and sharing, creating and sharing. And that's the cycle. And that's kind of how I approach this work. I'm not trying to convince you to buy our brand. I'm trying to make the best blends that we can make them over and over and over again, and
Hmm.
just go out and share them and find someone that loves it, and then hope they invite someone else to
Hmm.
share it too, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I like that analogy of that. You have talked before about using life changes as a chance to reset. You've described it as the Boston Michael, the New York Michael. Now you're the Ferio Tego Michael. What did each reinvention teach you? And how has that, given you the ability to kind of like weather highs and lows, like in the cigar business, which is something different every day?
Dude, that's a crazy question. Um, the restarts, I think, are just such an amazing opportunity to ground yourself in
Hmm.
reality that most people don't know you and don't care. Everyone's got their own thing going on. So you referred to the Boston Michael, the New York Michael. Um, it's an opportunity to present yourself to a new audience that does not have a bias or a preconceived idea of who you are. And so
Right.
we can get so stuck in thinking that where we are in this moment is um, the sum of all of our decisions from today backwards. And there's no ability to get out from under that burden of history and start over. But the
Hmm.
reality is we can, because most people don't know us, don't know anything about us. And so every new face you see is a new opportunity to be a new version of you. And so I have always used those moments, as you said, going to
Hmm.
Boston, moving to New York, changing jobs, changing companies, as the opportunity um, to just reset and make sure that I'm the best version of me in the moment. Um, the second part of your question was, how does that work?
No, you're good. Yeah. No, I mean, how does that help that skill set or that reset button? For me, it's always like the people that wait for January 1st for New Year's resolutions. And it's like, why do you wait for January 1st? So that ability to go, I can reset my goals April 13th. I can reset my goals September, 9th, whatever it might be. So that skill set helps me move going forward. I imagine in the cigar industry, that gives you to go, hey, I just need to look at this moment going forward, that you've already said how you're able to do that. So in the cigar industry, you have to be able to do that too.
Yeah. And, I worked for companies for many years, and now I have my own. So my mindset, I think, has evolved a little, and obviously maximum flexibility as an owner versus being employed.
Right.
Um, but as an artist, the work is ready when the work is ready. As a company, you are working on a marketing calendar with deadlines. This project has to be done by this date in order for it to get to the next step. Um, and big companies must work on that model because that's the only way they continue to grow.
Right.
Smaller companies don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. And so I really take that second approach, especially now, um, where if this seemed like a good idea a week ago, the facts have changed in the last 7 days, then you make a new decision. And it's not
Right.
that the first decision was wrong, the first decision was right, but
At the time.
you can make another right decision changes the outcome. And that's not to suggest it was a mistake. It's just there's new information that's going to change our decision making. That that agility and ability to be flexible, I think is critical,
I like that.
especially when everything is changing. I mean, just look at our industry in the last 5 years.
Right. Right.
We went from what we could say is normal in a post FDA
Right.
facing, complete regulation and annihilation to huge cigar boom, global pandemic, to something that feels recessionary, but it's kind of not, and we don't know
Right.
exactly what it is.
We don't know what it.
Uh, you know, so many more people uh, um, being introduced to this hobby that they never considered before, and then half of them abandoning it because they have to go back to work and they don't have free money. It all changes all the time, and so
Right.
the ability to preserve maximum flexibility is huge, which in the jazz world is also called improvisation. No solo is written. You don't play the same
Right.
solo every time. You play the head, you play the song, and then it's time to figure out the rest until you play the head on the way up.
I like that. You have I don't know if it's a unique background, but you've brought it with you from you understand the consumer of it. We'll talk about Nat Sherman in a second, but I want to start even before that. You worked in retail like right before 16 years old, like right out of the gate. That was you worked in retail. Is that right?
Um, Non-tobacco retail?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that first retail job? What was it? I don't even know.
Worked in a
You were like
pharmacy.
15 years and 15, you were just under 16 years old.
15 and 10 months,
Okay.
I think was the requirement. Unless I wanted to work on a farm, I think you could work agriculture.
Okay, that's like at 4 years old. Yeah, they don't care about that. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can get more kids.
I worked in a pharmacy right before I turned 16. And then I worked in a donut shop when I turned 17. Yeah, always customer facing. Always, always.
So what did you stopping there before you get into tobacco retail? What did that teach you about customer service at that point?
Bro, I don't know what you read to get all this stuff. Um, I don't know why. First of all, I always wanted to work, not to make,
Right.
not just to make money. Um,
Right.
there's something performative about work. I guess
Mhm.
specifically in retail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I always wanted to work and work with people, and meaning colleagues, like have work
Sure. Yeah.
team
Yeah.
and be customer facing and also be best. I
Hmm.
I wanted to be best cashier at the pharmacy there was, and I wanted to stock the shelves better, and I wanted to get the best customer service. And the same with the donut shop. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Well, I'll explain where I'm going with this, though. So I'm setting up for basically Nat Sherman and the townhouse and the whole implemented a cycle of service and just what you did at Nat Sherman. I mean, was that doesn't come from nowhere. I mean, you had to be gluing on to things, whether it was the donut shop or whatever. You had to be gluing on to certain things. You don't just walk into that environment and change it the way you did, or I should say, improve it. It wasn't like it was bad, but I mean, did you have classes? Did you read
Well,
books? Did you just, I mean,
no, I never read books. Still don't. At best, I go with
what?
my junior year. Um, no, I mean the 9 years preceding Nat Sherman and Davidoff were also, pretty important years.
Sure.
It was not something. I mean, if we're leaping to Nat Sherman and what we did to um to take that business and really move it.
Hmm.
It was kind of, I think it's a effort of polishing and
Hmm.
styling, um, rationalizing, and, and but I started that off when I was 22.
Hmm.
Um, I tried everything I could in that moment of reset, like we talked about earlier, to be the best salesperson in the shop. And
Right.
as you try everything, you quickly figure out what works. You figure out what
Hmm.
doesn't. You get rid of the stuff that doesn't. You hold on to the stuff that does, and then you audition stuff.
Right. Right.
Figure it out. As I was doing that, my roles changed. So then, I became a general manager of a store. Well, that was then I got to hold on to the stuff I knew worked, but now I was also forced to try I had to learn this whole new skill set of managing people, managing a business,
Hmm.
and you start auditioning new stuff again, figuring out
Right.
what doesn't. So I was very fortunate to have a lot of that experience before Nat Sherman.
Right.
Um, but then I also, when I got to Nat Sherman, I hired a general manager um, who was a very dear friend of mine, but was a general manager of a steakhouse. Um,
Okay.
because the most important part of that Sherman, when you consider what the environment was of that store specifically, we're talking retail. It was a 3-story townhouse. It was not a cigar shop. It was a um, it was a home, and it needed to feel different
Hmm.
than a shop. In fact, it was never called the townhouse until
Right.
I got there. And that was specifically to evoke this feeling that it was different. So
Hmm.
by hiring my buddy Pat Felitti, he brought this steakhouse mentality, restaurant mentality, hot food hot, cold food cold, greet you at the door, walk you to your table, all the things you expect in a restaurant.
Right.
I thought it was important to put the townhouse. And so a lot of that, like even the term cycle of service, that comes from the restaurant business. That came from
Right.
Pat. We put our cycle of service together, but the notion of even having one didn't occur to me until he said the word. Not that we didn't have
Mm.
best practices to
Sure. Sure.
meet a guest and walk them through sales, but it was Pat and the restaurant influence that put cycle of service front of mind, that then said, okay, let's write it down, let's memorialize it, let's train on it, and let's repeat it over and over.
Do you feel so? You look at, I mean, obviously that's somebody very influential, but you had to identify to bring in that person. You had to come, certainly all the Davidoff years, you're introduced to an aspect of luxury, a luxury brand, certainly. And you walk in the townhouse and you could kind of see the holes and go, okay, this is what we need. You've had the benefit of, several mentors from music, cigars, obviously, Manolo Casada. I know you were very close, still close. The Sherman family. Is there a lesson for a mentor that you just kind of still lean on, that like somebody taught you that you're like you go back to that one considerably?
Yeah, I'll give you two.
Okay.
Um, the first, musically, um, a guy named John Hazilla, I think he's still teaching at Berkeley. I had to bring in a recording of a gig I had played, and we were going to assess it. And so it was my quartet, I think, and the tenor sax player. Um, we were coming out of the head, the top of the song, going into solos. The tenor sax player's playing, and I'm playing behind. So I got my right hand is on the ride cymbal, and I'm keeping time. And he's playing and playing and playing and playing. And at some point, I did a fill as he was playing, and I changed cymbals, and I started keeping time on a different cymbal. And he stopped the recording, and he said, "Why did you move?" And I was like, just to mix it up. And he's like, but why? I said, I just felt good. But it's not your time. It's the sax player. He was playing,
Right.
he's creating his solo, and you
Gotcha.
shifted the ground below him for you. Don't do that. You have to be deliberate. You can't say why. Don't do it. And so deliberate
I like that.
why is my absolute North Star all the time. I talk about it all the time when we're discussing like new projects or limited editions. You know, I think I've said deliberate over and over and over again for Ferio Tego. We are so deliberate in what we do and why we do it. It is entirely because of that one lesson, this guy John Hazilla, where I moved symbols, that has forever made me ask why before I do something.
That's good.
The second mentor is Manolo,
Mhm.
and he invited me for drinks at a trade show. It was right when the Palazzo opened, and so we were at that bar, and it was everyone from that generation: Manolo, Sejas, Benjamin Mendez, um, uh, Guillermo Leon. It was like the entire board of Pro Cigar, basically.
Right. Okay.
And Danielle was there. We're all at the bar, and I'm all of, I don't know, 26, 27. And they were generous enough to speak English, which they didn't have to do.
Right. Right.
Um, I think the conversation ended up kind of going around to consumer and retailer facing, because it's the only reason I would have injected myself with an opinion, which I did over and over again to try and prove my value to the table. And
Right. Right.
every time I said anything, Manolo would knee me, in my leg. I'm on a roll here. I just kept saying stuff to justify my place there. And finally, he hit me so hard. I look over from, what? And he just leans close to me and he goes, son, shut the fuck up and listen. And he was so right.
That is very Manolo.
He was so right, because
Yeah.
I was only listening enough to come up with the next thing I wanted to say.
Right. Right. Right.
And I wasn't doing myself favors by injecting myself over the voices of legends, you know? And so fortunately that was early enough on where I just stopped, and it was crushing, obviously. It was right.
Sure.
But at the end, after an hour of not saying anything, but just listening, not only did I learn so much, but I avoided looking like an asshole. And
Right.
again, everyone said, what a nice young man this guy is,
Right. Right. Right.
Listen, he contributed a little, and Manolo was absolutely right. You got to listen more, man,
Right.
especially as a young person, you got to listen more. So those two things, Manolo and John Lazilla, I keep with me, I think about every day.
That's good. I like both those. Those are both really good. I'm realizing I'm smoking the Timeless, and it kind of dawns on me that, your time at Nat Sherman, you were like the guy kind of behind the scenes involved with those blends, and talking about Manolo remind me of that. You going down there and working on Nat Sherman blends. I think you called it a ghostwriter for them at one point, behind the scenes. How does it feel to own now the blends that you were part of and actually be involved in the, going forward? I feel like it's like if your kid was taken away from you, like through an adoption, and you get your kid, and it's like, it's got to be this weird feeling to finally, or it's a very comfortable feeling going, okay, they were mine anyway.
So I use the term ghostwriter a lot, because you can stand behind the work, but at the end of the day, it's not your name
Right.
brand. Um, being an owner and being able to um, claim the work is the most rewarding and fulfilling um, thing possible. Uh, I use parent analogies a lot. The blends are like my kids, and
Hmm.
each one is unique and they're special, and you love each one and you want to nurture each one because each one is different, and you want to see them grow up, and they're going to have different friends and have different personalities. Um, but also, we didn't. Someone said at an event like, "Oh, they won the Nat Sherman brands." I'm like, well, no, we bought the Nat Sherman brand. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but being able to buy the work back to preserve it was not just selfish, which it was, but it was also important because it restored blends back that consumers had depended on for, at the time, almost 25, 26 years with
Sure.
Metropolitan. Also restored production back to the factories who had depended on those brands for 25 years in some cases, 10 years in other.
Right.
Um, so it just um it's a huge point of pride, personal pride, to
Hmm.
not just have brought them back, but to preserve and maintain them moving forward under the Ferio Tego halo. Um, and what's also cool is that for so many people, they only know Metropolitan and Timeless as Ferio Tego. And as time moves on, that is all they should know. We're not going to give history lessons. If someone wants to go
Right.
back and look up the history, we're proud of it.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
But, um, but the fact that Timeless and Metropolitan now firmly live under Ferio Tego brand is also another huge point of pride.
I'm happy to see it, and I will credit you with something in watching all that before when Nat Sherman and you were doing those blends. I have to credit you the fact that you didn't fall into an ego trap of being bitter that that wasn't your name on it. You always knew your lane on there, and you handled yourself very professionally on there. Because there's a point where it's just like, well, I'm really the one doing all the work, and stuff like that. And I see guys go through that phase, like, well, that's not your lane. That's not what your job is right now. And I always thought you handled that very, very well. And I always feel like this is like, I'm glad it's back, where it was, because you created a lot of what's on the, well, certainly the ones that are on the shelf now, but you were such a big part of that.
Well, it was a nice reminder every 2 weeks when I got my direct deposit from Nat Sherman. I mean, that is a really nice reminder. I'm an employee, a grateful employee, and
Right.
you know, uh, go and do your job every day. I mean, I took credit for the work when it was
You should.
appropriate.
You
I
should.
did
Of
seminars,
course.
I did events,
I
I
did.
did,
Yeah.
it's not that it was a secret that I blended them, but I blended them as my job for for Nat Sherman or for Altria.
Right. Right. Let's talk about let's get into more into cigars, and certainly I want to get into your brand, and we got time to do that, obviously. Um, First of all, and we've talked about this before, how everybody thinks it's this glamorous industry, and someone in your position, somewhat in my position, will show up to an event and like, oh, I want your job, because you show up at an event, someone's done all the legwork, someone set up the boxes, someone did advertising or something like that. What they didn't see was you went and visited 6 other shops that day to either handle a problem account or get someone to go to the next level. What would you say is because my line is, I always say that, like, when we're on the road, if I can stay in the same hotel 2 nights in a row, that's a huge win. Like, I can literally unpack my suitcase for a night. What is something that you just think is just one absolute misconception out there in the cigar industry, what would it be?
That um, it's all events and dinners and flash. You know,
Right.
how do you convince somebody to love your brand more than the brand they already love?
Right.
That's paralyzing, and you're talking about consumers and retailers and salespeople. How do you convince all of them to, instead of spend their money on what they were about to spend it on this completely new thing
Right.
and there's absolutely no track record? It's paralyzing. Um, so of course the events are fun, the dinners are great. It's always great to see people and be out there, but that is, 1% of the work. And the
Right.
rest is just relentless thinking, relentless problem solving, relentless, trying new things and seeing if this one is going to work. There is no rest, you know?
Right.
Now
Let's
that's
talk about
the dinners are great and the events
the dinners are awesome. They're great.
in the same hotel is wonderful. But the 100% of the job is not that. That is
Right.
1 or 2%.
Right. Let's talk about the brand. Let's just start at what people see looking at, which is the Ferio Tego logo, which is your family coat of arms, which is Hercules slaying the Hydra. It has a translation. Do you want to translate it and tell everybody what it means and why you chose that?
So it loosely translates to strike, defend. If you got into it with Terrence Riley, who was a Latin major,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I believe it is I strike, I cover. It's the
Okay.
technical translation. Um,
Thanks, Terrence.
uh, but there's actually I think it's an art. There's a military regiment that's named Ferio Tego. They use strike and defend as their translation. And we adopted that version of the translation. In my family coat of arms, we actually use strike and dispose, meaning that Hercules strikes the Hydra and disposed of its evils, but that to defend the village that he was
Right.
the Hydra for. So strike and defend is the translation that we use, which is actually
So what is that?
well,
Go-
it's quite apropos if you think of us striking in the moment to buy Timeless and Metropolitan.
yeah.
Those brands, preserving them and bringing them back to market.
You launched Ferio Tego with 2 full-bodied cigars, correct me if I'm wrong, simultaneously, Elegancia and Generoso. Is that right? Okay, so you were constantly, and we'll talk about you in seminars a little bit later as far as how you try to educate people in different ways. How did you design 2 blends to tell very different stories, but they're both in the same family?
I'm a wine guy. I love wine. I love the idea that the same winemaker can make a beautiful, buttery, creamy Chardonnay and a monster big red cab or big red blend. And even though they are completely opposite varietals and experiences, you still experience the style of the winemaker. That was the approach for Elegancia and Generoso. To make a big, buttery, round, mouth-fillingly full Elegancia and make a round, creamy, but rich, spicy, massive, full-bodied cigar Generoso. That was the approach. It was purely inspired by wine.
Yeah, and you have a wine seminary background. Is that right?
I taught for the American Sommelier Association for many years,
Yeah.
teaching cigars, not wine, but
Right.
on service to somms.
It's interesting. A lot of people in the cigar industry have some sort of food or wine background, more so on the food than the wine, because let's be honest, that's a much harder process to go through what you
And I
did.
would also tell you, if you take one level deeper to find out how they got into that, most of them are musicians, actors, singers, dancers, or visual artists.
Thought you were going to say alcoholics or overeaters, but yes,
And
that's good also. That's
that
good
was
also.
that was the other side.
You have you have one of the most amazing abilities, and this must have been a little bit when you talked about Davidoff and you talked about Nat Sherman. You have one of the most amazing abilities to break something down for somebody that doesn't understand how a blend happened or how something happens. One of my favorite ones you do, and I want, if you don't mind sharing it, when we've talked before about how to transition a blend that you're going to run out of, and you use the analogy about actors and casting and a play. And can you share that with the people listening? Because I just think this is a great example of what you talk about.
No,
Replacing the role.
no, we'll do it. Yeah. Uh, when you go and see a play on Broadway, let's assume it's not a star-studded cast. You're just going to go see Phantom of the Opera, is the analogy I always use. You don't care who the actor is. You just want the play to be the play that you saw the last time. And
Right.
so if you saw it 10 years ago, chances are the entire cast is new. If you saw it last week, maybe one or two actors are different, but it makes no difference to you as long as the show is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
That process is what we do for blending. First, you create the play, then you audition actors to play the right roles, which are the tobaccos in the blend. Then you put the show on, but eventually one of those actors is going to leave. And so you are, as the show is going on, you are always auditioning other actors who will ultimately step in to play the role. So at whatever point you see the show, it's exactly the same as the last time or the next time. That's the process.
Yeah. And I love that analogy. You always break things down, whether it's, I mean, you have this thing about chicken soup. I mean, it's just, I've seen a million of these. Um, yeah, it's having the knowledge is not enough if that can't be conveyed. So I know a lot of really smart people that just can't get out of their head to me what they, are trying to say. And that doesn't do me any good. So you have an innate ability to be able to break that down for people in various seminars. I watched you, and I want to talk about the cigar too, because I watched you in Dominican Republic earlier in the year, I guess it was, do a rum pairing with Suma, which I had smoked a lot of Sumas. I've had way more rum than Sumas, no offense, but I mean, it had more time. And it, the way you broke down that pairing was very good. And so if anybody has a chance and are listening, if you're looking for a pairing to try, rum and Suma, very good. But talk about Suma and how your year-round core lines offer an expression of your style, because this was different than Elegancia and Generoso. So what was the idea behind that?
Elegancia and Generoso we make once a year. One size, two blends, that's it. That is not an enduring business model. So core is king. You need multiple sizes, in a box, approachable price. And so Suma really was intended to be the synthesis of Elegancia and Generoso to live as core. So we make it in 5 sizes. It is made in Dominican, where we make Elegancia, but it uses quite a bit of Nicaraguan filler, and we make Generoso in Nicaragua. It has a flavor profile that skews darker color, but it has a texture and mouthfeel that feels more like Elegancia. So it feels creamy, it feels round, it feels rich, unctuous, but the flavor styles definitely moved more the Generoso world of more of that chocolate, coffee, espresso, leather, earth realm. But that,
What
that
is
combo of those flavors in that texture and body presents in this perfectly fudgy kind of middle ground.
yeah. What's something in your blending? I mean, so blending for yourself, blending for others. I mean, blending for yourself, you have the ability to kind of increase your radius, if you will, of what tobaccos, because you're not in the constraints of what maybe a corporation wants or a specific company wants. What has there been any like things that just surprise you? You're like, oh, I really want to pursue this that ended up being a blend.
All, all of them. I mean,
All of them. Good.
when you start, like when I first started with Nat Sherman, the plan was specifically what is now Timeless Prestige, Timeless Supreme, which is actually funny because it's no different than how we started Ferio, with one from Dominican, one from Nicaragua, one mellower and smoother, one newer world and richer and more obvious. Um, but the pursuit of something specific, as we did with those two, um, is working towards that specific goal and crafting towards it. It's like if you're a builder working for a customer and they give you the blueprints of the house, you're not being creative. You are executing the plan to build it to the specs that your customer wants. We were building Prestige and Supreme to the specs that I envisioned for those blends. But through the process, you're tasting a lot of other blends. And as you move forward in time, working on other stuff, um, sometimes you're building towards specs, but oftentimes you're taking one of those ideas and you're bringing them closer to finality. Through the process, you're like, oh man, this is killer. It's not what I'm trying to create, but I'm not going to forget this idea.
Right.
Once you finish the project, you go back to the book and you're like, oh man, there's something cool about that. Let's move it a
Mhm.
little further, move it a little further. And then when there's an opportunity to bring something to market, you could start from scratch, or you go back to your book and say, man, that idea is already further along. Let's take that to finality. So
Yeah, I
Elegancia
used
and
to.
Generoso actually were ideas that were already in the sketchbook over the 9 years of Nat Sherman, blends that I had played with, Elegancia with Quesada in my Dominican book, Generoso with Plasencia in my Nicaraguan book. And when Ferio Tego was clear that was the plan I was going to do, and it was during COVID, there was no opportunity to go down there and start from scratch.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I reached out to Quesada and I found 3 ideas in my book that were great. And I said, remake these. We're going to take one of these to finality. And I went to Plasencia and pulled 3 ideas out of that book that I've been working on and said, let's remake these 3 and we're going to bring one of these to finality.
Right. I've always when I first started blending cigars, I remember I'd walk into a cigar shop and I'd see some brand that had 20 different blends on the shelf, thinking, how the hell do you have 20 blends? I mean, once you get to like 4 or 5, you got to be done. But it's exactly that reason that you're talking about, is that in the process of trying to finish a blend, you stumble on some that you're like, okay, this is an absolute no. This is like, did not go where I thought it would. But you always have these runner ups that are in the back of your mind going, I want to go back. And that's how you can end up with 20 blends, 40 blends, 50 blends. I mean, it's funny to have such a finite, what we think is a finite universe of tobacco. I always used to say, look, it was easier for me to blend when I just knew Jalapa. Like that was it. Like Jalapa. I don't know which farm. I don't know which part of the farm. I don't know which fermentation level. And then once you go down the rabbit's hole, it's crazy. Let's talk about, I mean, look, the demands of being a cigar, everything, brand owner, everything else, an artist, an entrepreneur, a family man. What advice would you give to somebody else? And they don't have to be in the cigar industry. How do you juggle all that? How do you maintain a balance? Because that's what we're all trying to do, right? Maintain that family work balance, and you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah. Poorly. I do it more. I don't balance well. I wish I balanced better. Um, it's just, I just bumped into Rocky, Patel, and he said, man, I see you on the road a lot. You got to slow down, take it easy. I was like,
Right.
bro, this is your fault. Like
Yeah. I was going to say, if anybody's to blame.
you did 10 years ago, and now we all have. Um, the old adage of if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. That's such a lie. It's all work. It's hard work. The difference is it's worth the work because you love it. Um, and so, I try and I try and be the best I can be in the role that I'm playing in the moment. So
Mhm.
yesterday was dad and husband role. Then I really try and do that one the best. Today is a work day.
Right.
And so yesterday I got no work done. So I played my work role poorly. And hopefully I played my dad and husband role well. Today's a work day. So I will probably play my work role better than my dad and husband role for the totality of the day. But
Mhm.
hopefully around 5 or 6, I will cut off my work role and bring that down to put dad and husband further to the top.
Yeah. It's just that easy. Like when the clock, when the bell goes off at 5, it's just that easy to stop too.
This, like I said, poorly. When I'm traveling, then it's obviously work role is dominant. And so you try and play the husband dad role the best you can, and you FaceTime and you check in and you text but it's a very hard thing to balance.
What's something you've done
You have no
recently?
advice. You have me for advice.
Yeah,
Right?
no, yeah, no, that's okay. I'm just gonna pretend we answered the question and move on because that's fair. That's an honest answer, to be honest. Um, what's something you've done lately that is not cigar related that just really excited you, that you just thought was a really cool moment? Take your time. I'll just cut out the pauses in the podcast, so it's not.
Uh, I mean, just both my kids had birthdays in the last 3 weeks,
Okay.
and both of them had birthday parties. Just seeing them in their age, it's so easy to think of our
Hmm.
kids still as little, but watching them both with their friends, being who they are, these growing kids, they're not
Hmm.
like babies anymore. And just to see them in their element, uh, with their unique personalities, was just, it was incredible for both of them.
That's cool. I like that. If you could master any skill that you don't have now, something completely different, unrelated to your expertise, what would you want to learn? Like, I mean, you're no drums, but it's like, I would like to shoot archery or I would like to fly planes. Is there anything out there that you're just like, okay, this is still on my list to do?
Skiing and golf,
Okay.
both
And
golf
not
and
simultaneously though, separately, right? Not at the same. Okay. Okay.
ski golfing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I wish I had learned golf because it would be good for business and it's obviously cigar friendly. Um, and skiing, my wife skis and my kids ski. I took one lesson. When I finally got to the Bunny Hill, you're a Christmas Vacation fan. You remember when Clark went down the hill on his sled after he had greased it up?
Right.
That's
Right.
about the speed that I went down on Bunny Hill on with no skis. And I had mastered pizza and French fries, and I was in full pizza to slow myself down wasn't working. And so as I was kamikazing down this hill, I had like 6-year-olds crossing my path, and I knew that eventually I was going to assassinate one of these poor kids.
Oh yeah, and those kids don't even have pulls. They're just like whizzing by you without the
Right.
pulls. Yeah.
So I bailed. I did the noble thing. I threw myself to the ground to stop the speed at which I was accelerating down this bunny hill that was pitched at probably 8 degrees. Uh, and then I found myself on the ground with skis and no core strength to get myself up. That moment, my kids came down the slope with my wife and saw dad on his back, unable to get up. And at that moment, I knew I had no future skiing. So skiing and
Maybe golf. Maybe golf. Maybe golf. Maybe we leave skiing on the side. We go with the golf.
there's something that 45-year-old men don't need to learn.
Right, right. Well, my wife's about ready to go out to see my daughter, and they're not quite ski season, but she'll go out there for ski season. And I'm just like, you know what? At my age, one, I was never very good at it. Now I'm like just not good enough at it to probably hurt myself pretty significantly. So, but I do golf, so I do have that going for me. Last question, second to last question, actually. You're hosting a dinner, and you can invite 3 fictional, non-fictional, live, dead people that you just want to have a great dinner party. Who do you want there? Who would you have there that would just be a fun dinner, do you think?
My great grandfathers.
Okay.
Don't know them, never met them, but it would be
Uh,
amazing to talk with them and learn their stories because we don't know those histories anymore.
yeah. I love that because I've never known anybody to pick somebody they don't know. Everybody goes through the cliche, like, oh, I want Mark Twain, or I want my father who I knew and passed away or whatever. But it's interesting you pick somebody that like you want what you don't know. I
Yeah,
like that.
but family still.
Right.
It would be
Right. Yeah, I love that. I love that answer. Tell everybody where to get a hold of you, your brand, you personally. If you want to find somebody that's dressed up, we didn't even get into the fact that somehow you have a wardrobe that is unbelievably stupid GQ looking that I'm also jealous of because my entire wardrobe is pretty much these V-neck t-shirts. That's pretty much my wardrobe. How do
uh,
everybody get a hold of you?
my wardrobe is also there's the suit wardrobe, and then there's also the denim shirt and Henley wardrobe. Like it's one or the other, but it's consistent. How do you get a hold of me? 917-22. No.
Oh no. Don't do that. Dear God, don't do that.
Um, I'm on all the socials
Yep.
under Herklots, and also as Ferio Tego, except for X, formerly known as Twitter, as Ferio Tego Cigars. Um, I'm a very easy guy to find. I'm on the Discords. I'm on everything. I try to be as accessible and approachable as possible, and I really welcome people reaching out. So you can find me wherever you are. I'm on. Except I'm
Yep.
not great on TikTok. I don't think I.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not on that one. If you're listening and you ever have a chance, and Michael is doing an event, a seminar, a tasting at any cigar shop near you, I highly recommend you see him. I always try to, even though I've seen him a million times. He's always got some cool gem that I want to listen to. And hey, who doesn't want to smoke his cigars? So thank you for listening. Michael, thank you so much for joining me, hanging out, just kind of sharing some information with everybody. And be well. Yeah.
Appreciate
Talk to
you.
everybody later.